The only thing that doesn't change is my underwear.
Ew. Hello and welcome to the QUACKCAST. This is the Drunk Duck QUACKCAST. I'm Ocean with me is Baines, Tance, and Pitface.
Hello.
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 Oh, we're all here. So this week we're talking about the trope of the pretty boy bad-arse, which is fairly rare these days, not as common as it used to be, but it does pop up every now and again, and we love it. And it's based on Tance's news post from 2 weeks ago. So, before we get into that, we have to bring up the featured comic. So, here we are. The feature. And here's QUACKCAST with her feature, The War Below Us. So, Quai, tell us about The War Below Us.
Hello, this is QUACKCAST, and the feature I've selected for this week is The War Below Us by Pudding Lemon 98, and it is rated T14. Watch and be wary for any wandering warlock in the woods, for the witches are out and ready to hunt. A witch named Angel holds a meeting with the king at Augustu's castle in the fallen kingdom before meeting with a coven. Romantically intertwined, Lenore and Edgard meet each other for an evening encounter when they stumble upon a warlock injured at the hands of a witch. The art uses rich violets and aquamarine jewel tones. Enchanting, digitally drawn illustrations are beautifully displayed on fully colored pages. Help Lenore get Ed home and read The War Below Us by Pudding Lemon 98, rated T.
And that was the feature. Okay, next up we have the featured music. Gumwallace this week has given us the theme to The Anitha. Running over the darkened plain, legs pumping, feet eating up the distance, dust flying, pounding on into the dimness, escaping, leaving everything behind. This electronic tune is scene-setting and atmospheric, suggesting speed and distance with its relentless rhythm. Take it away, Gumwallace, with The Anitha. That was Gumwallace's theme. Thank you so much for that, Gumwallace. Alright, so we're talking about the pretty boy bad-arses. Tance gave us this great little news post about the whole thing, about the pretty boy badass trope, as she sees it. And, like, Tance, you're really into, like, Korean cinema and Korean TV shows and movies. South Korean. You really love that. And I find this is a thing about, this is very much an Asian trope, not just for Korean movies. But I don't know Chinese, but you see it in Japanese. So
I would say, actually, that it's not a Korean trope. You have gorgeous men. I will say that. They are all very, very beautiful men, not just handsome.
Well, thank you, but let's talk about the trope.
But it's not, they don't fit the trope in the sense that when they are playing the badass, usually they go straight up the trope of the badass. Like they are very much not interested in fashion. They don't take care of themselves as much. And I mean, not in the way that the trope requires. They just happen to be very, very handsome, extremely handsome men, and awesome to look at. Highly recommended. Just putting it out there. But what I have seen to be a trope, a more frequent trope, is in Chinese cinema. Cinema and Chinese series, you do have a lot of pretty boy badasses, especially in historical fantasy series where you have these godlike beings. I don't want to say that they are exactly gods because they are some sort of deity. Their status fluctuates depending on what they do and what myth it is they are in. But they are very concerned with how beautiful they look. And at the same time, they are very good at fighting, and they are very badass. And they, like, the trope of the badass is also played very straight, but it so happens that they are also very much fashion people, and they really like their prettiness to be accentuated. They wear their hair a certain way. They like to wear jewelry. They totally go to spa-like things, and they soak and they take care of themselves, and all the stuff that supposedly badass men do not need. They do. So yeah, in China you can find those characters.
That's interesting.
A lot more easily.
And like Japanese, like anime at least, has always had this this in there, especially for antagonist characters. And I'm pretty sure in Japanese culture, this is an older thing, because there was this this thing for samurai where, real samurai, genuine, to do so to cultivate some more like aspects of beauty. So you might fight, you'll train in fighting, and you'll become extremely efficient, and maybe you'll also arrange roses, like flowers. That will be a thing. Or you'll do poetry. I think Musashi, one of the most famous samurai, was a famous writer. Haikus and all this kind of stuff. And you might also like have this beautiful looks. I think there would like you'll do the makeup and everything, look very pretty, and you might have combs in your hair, and you'll fight with these metallic fans. So there'll be like a ladies' fan, but metallic. And that was a thing. I think the Yojiro, the guy with the big long sword, I think he was famous for doing the makeup and looking pretty. So, that's the thing.
Yeah, another one. Now that you went there, like in the more ancient, old school fighters. Another that I would say could fit the trope would be Spartans, because like ancient Spartans, because they had a thing of grooming themselves very meticulously. They had very long hair, which they would comb very well, and they would groom themselves and pamper themselves right before battle. So
oiled up.
That.
They'd be oiled, and then they'd scrape the oil off their bodies, and
the equivalent of a spa day.
So that they would be beautiful if they fell in battle.
Yeah,
At least that's
beautiful.
the
Yeah.
speculation.
They didn't fight naked
Exactly.
with loincloths, as in the movies, but we covered that before. So, but they did have beautiful armor, you know, their lovely helmets with their crests and things like this. They did look very cool. So,
Yeah, and they really they really took extremely good care of their bodies, which is ironic considering how hardened they were due to all the training that they had and the hardship that they put themselves through. But once they reached that, warrior status, they had spa days. And I think there is this, if I'm not mistaken, that there is this account of a spy, and I think a spy from the Persians, who went to see what they were doing at the camp in Thermopylae. And he was really taken aback seeing them all, basically grooming themselves, combing each other's hair, and all of that. Basically like a pajama party sort of thing. And he returned to report that they were probably pansies that were not going to be a problem in battle. Because they were going through bodification processes, I guess. So,
and little did they know, they weren't just pretty boys; they were badasses.
Exactly.
The
Yes.
The Vikings had a similar thing, I believe, in that it's reported that people who, wrote about them rather than Vikings writing about themselves said, they had their hair very nicely combed and they used to, look after themselves quite meticulously and, cut their fingernails very nicely and wear their very well tailored clothes and all this kind of stuff. So apparently the image of Vikings as brutish monster men is not quite accurate. Or maybe that was just the Vikings when they were a Viking, sailing on the stinky ships, all these other stinky guys and getting off and doing a raid. Maybe they sort of didn't look after themselves then, but apparently in society, the Vikings would look after themselves very well. So there's another triangulation point in this structure we're building of the Pretty Boy Bad-Arse.
Yeah.
They're all over the place.
Would you put? I don't know if you ever saw Tombstone, the Western with Kurt Russell as Wyatt Earp, but with Doc Holliday, the Val Kilmer Doc Holliday.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
And this is true as well. They did, make themselves look quite good in their meticulously tailored outfits with the, their waistcoats and silver fob watches and silver buttons and things and moustaches. Beautifully trimmed and curled. Yeah, you're right, Baines. That's a good example.
Yeah, I wish I had thought of that.
It's hard to think of an example, but you don't see a lot of grooming. But okay, that sort of comes across, and from what you're saying, that is a.
I think you do see
deeper.
Doc combing his moustache.
Yeah. I think maybe you do. Yeah, it's been a while since I've seen that, but
and he looks good. Val Kilmer as Doc did a damn good job, and Val Kilmer is very pretty boy.
That's not on accident. Exactly my point. Like, that's not casting that was done on accident. They wanted somebody who had a reputation of being a little bit more pretty, He played the first Batman too, didn't he? Or no, he played the second one, right?
Yes.
Pardon?
Or am I being stupid? Okay.
No, you were right.
Played...
It was in the third film, but he was the second Batman after Michael Keaton.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Yeah.
He was also a pretty boy badass.
Even then.
In sorry, go
on. No, you go on.
Top Gun. That was full of pretty boy badasses in Top Gun. So that's another
Yeah.
example.
Way to the danger zone. They're like playing volleyball and shit.
Yeah, exactly.
I really think that we should have a lot more, especially in a society that wants art that carries messages of people being able to express what they want, how they want. Like have pretty boy badasses in there, and don't code them for anything just because they like pretty things and earrings or rings or frilly dress, not dresses, frilly shirts, or even frilly dresses. I mean, why not? And
well, I mean, even if they are gay, like so many times, it's like a beautiful, effeminate gay character can't be badass at the same time.
Absolutely can be. Or turning it on its head. That's not a pretty boy badass, but what I would also like to see is that if you have like a very like a badass, serious guy that looks very manly man and he's gay.
Yeah, you don't really see that very often.
Yeah. It doesn't don't canalize people. Don't canalize people. Like have a variety of characters out there. And yeah, I know coming from me that has a cast that is very non-diverse due to historical purposes. But yeah, that is something. If you do want to do diversity, that is something to consider.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Too often
I'm
people
nodding in agreement.
Too often people just go for the the straight. People just go for the very simplistic tropes. So the gay person has to be fey. They have to be the pretty boy, but not necessarily very tough, or they're evil. Or the pretty boy is just gay because that's what pretty boy equals. So it is more interesting to have the pretty boy being straight and the big tough guy being gay because you're fighting against the tropes. But it's also
absolutely
real.
watch that.
Because gay people and straight people aren't limited to following just those roles. Like, gay people are all shapes and sizes, and straight people are as well. So, and bisexual
Not
people.
everybody is either gay or straight.
Exactly. Polyamorous and bisexual and all this kind of stuff. That's fine to have characters which I think is way more transgressive now because people expect characters to be either or. And when a character is both or all, then people go, oh no, I'm sorry, I don't like this anymore. I can't understand. I can't. Which is he? Come on, make up your mind. Which is she?
Like bisexual people in particular get shit on a lot. Bisexual characters get shit on a lot because they're often framed as like, they're duplicitous and they'll, they can't just stick with one person. They're heartbreakers. They, like to sample everything. When in real life, I mean, the bisexual people have the same kind of constraints that the rest of, I don't know how to say it. They're not just like flighty people that are out to like get as much nectar as they can, if you will. They're just anyway. I'm getting into social justice, Deidre, and I need to step back a little bit. But
you do have a point. At least I don't have examples right now, but the impression that they have from media that they have consumed is that if they do have a bisexual person, like a bisexual character, they are also portrayed as either degenerate or corrupt in some way, a lot more than straight or gay. Like, because, I don't know, supposedly they should pick a side, I guess. I don't know. Yeah, that also is. All of these things are very, neat boxes that we have to absolutely put characters in. And that's also why a talk about biases without coloring like the bias as being something labeling people for their biases, I think is very much important, because then if people are not afraid to look at themselves, are not afraid of having been characterized of something, then they will look at their biases and explore them and eliminate them eventually, at least to a point. So, yeah. Sorry, I diverged a lot, but that's where I was coming from when I talked about this trope.
Okay. Well, who are some of your favorite pretty boy bad-arses? Like your most various favoritist.
I cannot think of any, which is very sad.
Oh, I
Very hard to come up with.
thought you would have thought of Kenshin, because he's not really that pretty.
Yeah,
but he's there.
He's very close to it, but he's not. He's that thing that I talked about the the Korean badass men in that he's very pretty and he looks effeminate, but it's not because he likes pretty things and takes care of himself or generally shows any kind of attention to that. It just happens to him.
He's not pretty. He was just drawn that way.
Exactly. The point is, I want to see the guy be upset if he loses like a favorite jacket, or if the hair gets messed up, or things like this that I don't really see. So
yeah, it happens, but it's not it's not something that happens often, and especially not for a hero protagonist character.
Yeah, exactly. I would like to see a hero that is totally into stuff that he is not supposed to as a hero, and still be a hero, and
like
have people
Catwoman.
What?
I said like eating out Catwoman.
Yeah, sort of. Which I don't understand what the problem is. I mean,
wait! I shouldn't say that. We're gonna get off track again. We gotta talk about the pretty boy badass and not eating out Catwoman.
Yeah,
but
because we did a whole QUACKCAST on that already.
Yeah. But the female version of that would be the pretty girl badass, in the sense that she is not a manly woman. Those type of strong female characters that somehow shun everything that is freely and pink and everything.
Legally Blonde.
Yeah, she is a pretty girl badass.
Yeah.
I love her, by the way.
Yeah, there's no.
I think there's more of those than there are pretty boy badasses.
Yeah, but still not very many. I mean, somehow, like if the girl is going to be like a strong character, she has to be, away from the girly stuff, like usually at least.
Or it's a pretend, like the girl is very pretty still, but it's a pretend idea that they're a badass, like
happens.
Pinky TA.
Yeah. It happens to her to be pretty, and her hair happens to be always perfectly drawn, but it's not that she puts her hair in curlers every night to have it be so perfectly coiffed. It just happens to be that way.
Baines has a pretty girl badass.
Oh yeah, Baines does.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
In Chatterbox.
Yeah. Lily?
Well, I was even thinking of what's her name from
Harley?
no, yeah, Holly, I think, right? She's like the badass chick.
Yeah, I think so. They're all kind of badass.
Yeah.
Depending on the situation.
Well, there we go.
Not sure which one you're thinking of.
Harley with the blonde hair and everything.
Pizza Girl? Yeah. She's a tough one.
Well, there we are. So Baines is the poster child for the pretty girl badass.
There you go. I'm carrying the flag for you, ladies.
You're holding up the side.
Yeah. And that doesn't and that doesn't mean, to just eliminate the other tropes, like the badass guy that is not a dandy, or the badass woman that just isn't interested in girly things. Just add to that. Not, it's not an add this and discard that, because everything is fun to look at. It's just that it would be nice to show to people, especially to younger audiences, that you can be a dynamic person that impacts change and is powerful, regardless of what your tastes are in very much surface things, is what I'm saying.
Well, speaking of this, there's sort of a weird version of that in this great anime called Black Lagoon, where this Japanese salaryman, businessman, falls into being a mercenary with these two badass mercenary people. This Chinese lady who's super tough, and this big black American dude who owns this World War II torpedo boat. And the salaryman, his thing is that he always dresses as a perfect Japanese salaryman, even though he's on this stinky, oil-covered, disgusting World War II torpedo boat with nowhere to wash or no toilet or anything like that. He's always dressed perfectly in his short-sleeved button-up shirt and his perfectly pressed trousers, his belt, and if any oil or something gets on him, he always changes his outfit. But he's not pretty. He's just always perfectly attired, And that becomes his thing. And that he does that because he's stuck in this horrible part of the world, with all these mercenaries in Thailand somewhere. And he wants a sense of normalcy, and his, a feeling of being where he came from. So he stays with that look. So that's his reason for it, which I thought is an interesting take on the whole thing, He's not looking pretty, but he is caring about his appearance.
Yeah. And actually, I don't like starting actually, but I mean to say that the level of attention to grooming that people give is something that psychologists are taught to look at when someone walks in their office, because if you let yourself go, is a bit of a red flag. It's not necessarily something that indicates a problem, but if it is there along with other things, then it is. What I'm saying is that not taking care of yourself in terms of grooming or in terms of, having a style or whatever is not something that indicates in real life positive things about you. I'm not saying to be a dandy, but just, walking around with the very rugged look of having just walked away from a bomb is also not the way to go necessarily. Yeah.
Oh, quite true, quite true. Yeah, and it is interesting that you talked about the idea of characters being handsome and not being a pretty boy. Well, there's Indiana Jones. So he's that kind of thing. Like, he's a handsome guy because Harrison Ford is a handsome man, but he's definitely not a pretty boy. He is like the masculine version of an everyman hero, but is still very handsome, but not, he doesn't, take care of his appearance and any of that kind of thing, but he's not quite a pretty boy character. So it's interesting that we do have characters that skirt that.
Yeah, and I was talking about earlier, and I say this on the cast, sometimes I name drop movies and stuff because I want to see if other people want to talk about them with me, but comments, they never do. But I did watch Promare, which is an anime, and there's one character who I was so I tend to go into things quite blindly, as blind as I can, unless I've seen like a trailer or something, but for a long time, like the cover of this movie was kind of staring me in the face whenever I go and see like my recommended movies here or there. It looks quite cool, and it is very cool. But on the cover, there's these two characters, and one is, most definitely this big masculine dude, and he's got like the anime hair and stuff, and he's kind of facing off against this very androgynous looking character. And they have like the bobbed hair and like the kind of fluffy rifflage like around the neck and stuff like that, and so I was going in thinking this was going to be a very dandy character, and they weren't. They were still super badass, but yeah, I was fully expecting to get a dandy badass character out of that. I really liked it, so
interesting.
They were cute.
Another,
but yeah, it wasn't a character that actively tried to be well kept or feminine. They just looked that way anyway.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm a Kenshin fan, and I didn't immediately think of him, and this is terrible. I'm disappointed in myself. But a pretty boy badass in Kenshin is his teacher, Hiko Seijuro, or however he's pronounced. I'm terrible with those pronunciations. But his teacher, his master, who has taught Kenshin everything he knows, remains the one character that is the most badass of the entire cast. And he loves being pretty. He's this giant guy, like very, very tall and broad-shouldered and stuff, and he wears a very fancy coat that... Sorry, can you hear that?
Yeah, but it's going away.
Okay, that is a marriage. Sorry.
Oh, congratulations!
The Cars have got married. Oh, lovely.
No, it's not my marriage.
Little baby Cars.
It's a custom that when a bride goes to the church, everyone honks. The convoy honks, which is super annoying for anyone who is not in the convoy. So sorry about that, guys.
For us, it's when they come from the church. It's interesting, huh?
So anyway, he's like broad-shouldered. He has that very fancy cape. He has long hair that he always takes care of, and he is a ladies' man and goes after everything that moves, that is also female, and and he is absolutely scandalized that Kenshin is not like that, among other things, and he still, like, Kenshin is the second best badass in the cast because he gets his ass beaten every single time by Hiko.
That's
With
interesting.
ease. So
Interesting.
yeah, he's awesome. I love him.
I know there's this anime, I cannot remember the name of it for the life of me, but it's about these superheroes. So they're all superheroes, and they become members. To be a superhero, you have to be sponsored, and because it's very expensive to be a superhero, so they all have to become members of this company, and they all have sponsors written on them and stuff. But the two main male characters, are both sort of dandies. Especially this the later, like, younger fellow who's blonde, and he's very pretty and beautiful, and he's obviously quite gay though. But he's a very good, fighter and everything like that. And this other character who is older, he's like in his 40s or something, and he's sort of on his way out, and he used to be the main guy, and this younger character seems to be like he's taking over, or the company wants him to take over because he's, younger and fitter and prettier, and they've sort of got both the same powers. So they think, well, do we really need two guys with the same power? Maybe he can retire, to the older guy. And the older guy he's still a bit pretty, but he's got slightly more of the handsome rather than the pretty kind of thing about him. But he is sort of, handsome-ish pretty. And in the way that they're written, there's like a boy love, a man love thing, I would say, not a boy love kind of thing going on between these characters, because they hate each other and then they're slowly coming around to liking each other. And this character is like, they're not like openly like in a homosexual relationship, but it could be to Lighthouse, but it could be one. But this guy, he's obviously like, he's had a daughter and all this kind of stuff, so he would be bi, I suppose. But yeah, it's an interesting kind of thing there, dynamic. But yeah, there's definitely a pretty boy aspect to that one, Pretty Boy Bad-arse, because the characters are quite badass and good looking.
Oh, doesn't sound familiar.
Now that something that comes to mind, I think that one of the Three Musketeers is also that, like a pretty boy badass.
Right,
I think
that's exactly correct.
I think Aramis. I think so. But he's the one that he's also the ladies' man, and he very much is interested in being well groomed. And I think he also used to be the priest, the ex-priest, who of course is not a priest anymore because he bedded all the ladies that came in for confession. So yeah, but he is super badass. So
yeah, definitely. Yeah, well, that's interesting. Well, Dread Pirate Roberts from Princess Bride, sort of that.
Sort of. I think it happens to him. I don't think he pursues it.
And then there's Kerry Elwes, the actor, also played Robin Hood in Robin Hood Men in Tights, and that was more of a pretty boy take on Robin Hood, like we're manly men in tights, and they do definitely play on that.
How about? I would say that fits the part is Jack Sparrow from Pirates of the Caribbean.
Oh yes, he does.
In a very piratey manner. I mean, he's very much like he's not the cleanest guy out there, but he definitely is bejeweled, and he looks like he is interested in that sort of thing.
He wears makeup.
Yeah,
quite obvious, like black under the eyes, eyeliner, and that kind of thing. Yeah, Jack Sparrow definitely fit, and he is a real badass. And he's not like a badass who goes around, oh, I'm going to beat your ass, mate. He's like oh, yes, oh.
Perfect.
That was really good.
He was such a good character that he carried 3 horrible movies, and he still was.
Maybe 4.
He redeemed them.
They did.
Austin Powers.
Get a bit better. Austin Powers.
Definitely Austin Powers.
God, yes.
Yeah.
Not that pretty, but he makes a good effort at it. Oh, jeez.
And I haven't seen In Like Flint, I think it's called, or Our Man Flint, that Austin Powers is based on. I haven't seen those movies, but probably fits, I'm guessing.
Ooh.
Sounds like he was a similar guy, kind of a fashion pate. Is that the word?
Interesting. Well, there's Remington Steele, who definitely fits in this. It's a TV series.
Yeah, you have your well-clothed detectives, yeah. Who's the gentleman thief?
Oh, that's Raffles.
That phrase.
Raffles. Oh. Yeah, Raffles very much sort of fits that. The gentleman thief. Is a bit more obscure these days, but again, I think Pierce Brosnan might have had an appearance as him, a modern version of Raffles. I'm not sure. Pierce Brosnan or the other guy, I always get confused. They both play James Bond. Pierce Brosnan or who was the other?
Roger Moore.
They both look quite no, earlier than him. No, it was Pierce Brosnan. It was Pierce Brosnan, yeah. He's played everybody. Oh, the Saint. The Saint is definitely that character.
Oh, guys, the Spanish guy from the Highlander movies, played by Sean Connery.
Ramirez.
Yeah. He was super into fashion.
An earring and everything.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, very much so. Yeah, he was really cool. I'll say any hussar, because I love hussars.
Yes.
19th century, well, not 19th century. They came starting in the 17th century, but the Napoleonic style hussars that originated in Hungary with the rows of buttons and tall hats, and the they had like a real kind of swashbuckling flair about them, but that was incredibly popular when that sort of took Europe by storm, that style, because of the fashion. So they started out as this Serbian mercenaries who were fighting the Ottoman Turks in Hungary, and they joined the ranks in Hungary, and then they joined the ranks in Poland, places like this. And then eventually this style of cavalry, which is light cavalry, but in this beautiful Hungarian fashion with this the tight jacket with rows and rows and rows of buttons and lace on the front of their jacket, and another jacket over the shoulder worn like a cape. So it looked very flashy and exciting, and they had the curved swords and these big tall furry hats, and that sort of captured the imagination of all of Europe, and suddenly all of Europe had to have hussars in their ranks just because of the look. And then they'd, as a status thing, other units that were quite important, like artillery, would also dress up like hussars for no particular reason. So they'd all have these elaborately decorated jackets, and jackets hanging over their shoulders, and curved swords, and the whole spread of like curved swords, sabers, happened because of hussars, because hussars were so cool, and everyone wanted to have that coolness rub off on them. So they all got it, and it like went all the way across Europe, all the way over to Britain, and all around the world. There were even, like in the late 19th century, early 20th, there were even Japanese hussars. So yeah, it was the hussar pandemic. It just went everywhere. There were American hussars. There were like Australian, South African. It was everywhere. the globe, and it was basically the pretty boy
I'd rather
badass.
have a hussar pandemic. It sounds a lot more fun.
Yeah.
Can't we have a fun pandemic?
A lot more fashionable anyway. But yeah, it was the pretty boy badass look, because people were attracted to the uniform and they wanted to join the units because they really wanted to look cool like that. And they were badasses because, you know, they were damn good fighters. They weren't just looking good. So there we are. It does work in reality.
Well, that kind of makes me think of how in so much kind of romantic literature, more or like, find words, Deidre. like think of how we think of people like from the Renaissance who like fence and stuff like that, like the elegant fencer, you know, who's both a combination of danger and beauty and elegance and sophistication. Like that's kind of a trope that kind of parallels or feeds into this idea of like the pretty boy badass, you know?
It does, yeah. The elegant, as you say, elegant fences and characters like, say, Hamlet was the gothic, the goth kind of pretty boy kind of character who's like a fantastic fencer and kills everybody in the end, pretty much.
Or the Bishi from Revolutionary Girl Utena. I can't remember his name, but like, but he's a Bishi.
Well, actually, one thing that I just thought of was in the 80s, like we were talking about heavy metal before, and I was saying like in the 80s metal wasn't really such a diverse thing as it was now. You know, you might have had some thrash just starting and bits and pieces, and you had the glam metal thing was the biggest popular music kind of trend then. And the glam metal thing just was completely that pretty boy badass look, because the guys were there with their, you know, ridiculously huge hair and, you know, makeup and tight clothes, but they weren't like gay coded. They were still like women would fall over themselves for these characters, and so they were still seen as being highly like ultra masculine. At the same time, they were like incredibly pretty, and that was the look, to have, you know, people posing and with their lipstick and go this kind of thing, and still like seen as being like desirable to women and desirable to many men, because this was seen as being, you know, something that was very attractive to people, which is weird now because people don't understand that. They don't have the context for that, so they look back at these images of these people dressed up like that and they think, oh gee, that was a bit gay or like effeminate, but they don't understand that it absolutely wasn't at all. It was not seen as effeminate. It was seen as being like, that was just the way rock music was, and that was how people looked. So yeah, that's another interesting aspect anyway. It does sort of, like the whole pretty boy badass thing, it does have a really solid root in our culture, but it just sort of like it goes away and then it comes back maybe, and at the moment it's gone away. We're not so into it as a culture. We sort of are very strict in our ideas about, okay, a badass has to be a bearded man at the moment, has to be someone big and beefy and tough, and that's how it is. You're not allowed to have a more effeminate looking person being like really tough. That's just no.
And it's stupid.
Yeah. If they are, then they have to be gay. That's how it is.
You know, leaves an opening for creators to do that, and it's more unusual, so it could be a good thing.
Yeah.
It is. Yeah. It's just interesting to come to the realization that it is a cyclical kind of thing. So maybe we are in a dip at the moment. We're waiting for that to be on the ascent again. And like you say, Baines, take advantage of it. Reinvent it. Make yourself really popular. It's actually given me a lot of good ideas because, as Chance, you made the whole news post up because that was a something you'd like to see more of. So there is an opening for it. Give us your character who's super obsessed with fashion. What's that? Pitface has run off to create that character.
She mentioned fencing, and to show how dorky I am, that instantly made me think of Captain Picard. Again, an older version of the pretty, not necessarily, is probably too old for that, but, into literature, classical music, poetry, fencing, very Renaissance man kind of guy, also badass.
Yeah, and I think when we say like a pretty boy badass, that doesn't necessarily mean that they are handsome, just that they are interested in being pretty as possible.
Okay.
I would say.
Well, yeah, Picard...
because you have, most of the heroes are handsome in literature.
Right. So, yeah. True enough. So if it's effortless, then it doesn't really count.
Yeah.
Picard doesn't really look after his looks that much. He's just very neatly cut hair.
He might not fit.
But he does, as you say, Baines, the other aspect of it, he's very cultured. And he's very cultured about everything. So that does have, an intellectual prettiness about it.
Yeah. He's groomed. Keeps it trimmed down. what he has is trimmed down, or it's just not there at all.
Well, he doesn't. He's not.
In the chat, I mentioned Pai Mei. After Tance mentioned Oren as the female version.
Yeah.
Somebody mentioned Oren from Kill Bill. Yeah.
She's the pretty girl badass in the sense that she wears a full kimono with all the restrictions that dress. It's not a dress, but anyway, this outfit has, and she is amazing with a sword, while being super Japanese female coded, doesn't get more female looking than this.
Oh,
and
extreme.
He ruled the Yakuza, I think, with an iron fist, while looking super effeminate and super pretty in her very pretty tight kimono. So
I always remember that scene. I just watched it recently, actually, but after or just before her fight with
Bellatrix.
With Beatrix, with beep. Just before the fight, she very carefully slips off her little slippers.
Yeah.
Very daintily, So, good example. So anyway, it made me mention Pai Mei as a very fastidious, kind of carefully groomed, spotlessly clean, kind of.
Yeah, and how he
obviously badass.
Doing this gesture of his perfectly groomed beard that is tangled, and he's very, very silky, and he always, strokes it he definitely fits the trope. And about Oren, the biggest thing that I remember of her that drives that particular taste of the trope is that when one of her underlings crosses her or says something that she doesn't like, I don't remember what, she walks on the table with those little tiny dainty steps very quickly, and she just lops off his head.
That's right.
Very daintily.
Yeah.
It's like
there are some interesting examples. I think Hashiko in the comments mentioned drag queens who can be badasses.
Oh yeah,
And that's
totally. They
not
would
uncommon. Like in the movie Priscilla, Queen of the Desert, the characters are shown as being, if you've ever seen that one, a fantastic Baz Luhrmann film set in Australia, starring Terence Stamp, and who else? I can't recall the other actors, but they're very good. The fellow from The Matrix who plays Mr. Smith, he's one of them, and the guy who plays whatever. Anyway, they're all like like very pretty people because they're drag queens, but they're also badasses as well. So when you cross them, they can be quite tough, which is an interesting kind of thing.
That reminds me of, oh god, see if I can remember the name of this movie. To Wong Fu, Thanks for Everything, Julie Newmar. Which is another drag queen movie. It's about characters who do identify as male, I think, but they're in drag pretty much the whole time. But anyway, it was just like back in the day, so it's not up to speed on everything. But Patrick
Swayze.
Yeah, because I almost said Patrick Stewart for a second. Patrick Swayze plays like kind of like the lead out of the three drag queens, and so of course, like being drag queens, like they groom themselves well and stuff. They're fucking gorgeous. They know all about hair and everything like that. But there's this one part where there's this one woman who's being abused by her husband, and I keep on wanting to say Patrick Swayze's character goes and confronts him and like kicks his ass pretty good. So I mean, that's another like a beautiful man being badass. But yeah, they're pretty badass in that movie. They have to turn around an entire town to kind of like them, and they endure a lot of shit, but they win their hearts in the end, and everybody is better for it and more fantastic. So
yeah, John Leguizamo was great in that one. Extremely like very feminine looking in that film, surprisingly, which is amazing. Apparently he pissed off Patrick Swayze so bad that they stayed enemies forever afterwards.
Really?
Oh, wow.
Oh no.
He used to play jokes on everybody.
And Wesley Snipes was in there.
Yes, Wesley Snipes as well. So they're all three tough guys, which is surprising.
Yeah.
Oh, Wesley Snipes plays Wesley Snipes and who's that other actor? Eddie Murphy. They're well, at least Eddie Murphy's pretty boy in Coming to America. And then Coming to America 2, Wesley Snipes plays a very pretty boy kind of badass character. He plays this evil general. And he's beautifully dressed.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's interesting. I mean, beautifully dressed. He takes care of his outfits. And he is incredibly badass. So, yeah. Coming to America. If you've ever seen the second one, which was on Amazon Prime for a while. Don't know if it still is. But yeah, so they do pop up for every now and again. But as Tant says, they tend not to be mainstream protagonist characters. Unfortunately.
Oh, mine's going to be. It's going to be.
So Pitt is the one who's going to change everything.
You wouldn't think it'd be me either, given my past, my comic book past. I'm gonna fucking do it.
Oh yeah, I can confirm that because I know exactly what is coming and it is fabulous. So
thank you. Yeah, you've been there the whole way. So.
Tance has been encouraging
that
it.
was a traumatized looking. Yeah.
All comes back to Tance. She's making sure this happens. Building it brick by brick.
Actually, that is all pit face. I just really have been on board because it was, and it is, an awesome journey. So
Nice.
Well, I mean, we haven't talked, but the world is all about representation now. Like, it's good to have more representation of different types of people, and pretty boy badasses deserve their representation, because there's a lot of people who like to take care of themselves and would like to see a main character that reflects that. So, good for you, pretty boy, and pretty boy bad-ass ladies as well. And no, not pretty boy, pretty lady. What would you call it?
pretty girl.
Pretty girl. Pretty girl badasses. So yeah, and as we say, when we say that, it's not just pretty because she is naturally pretty, it's because this is a character that obviously within the context of the story deliberately makes herself look that way.
She puts in the effort to be pretty.
There we
Even
go.
if she's naturally pretty, she also, goes the extra mile.
And it wouldn't have to be like, a skinny, big boobed kind of thing. It would be a lady like who was like she could be a bit chunky, and she could be a pretty girl badass because she's just taking care of herself.
And the prettiness doesn't need to be like your Barbie style pretty. She could just be a very meticulous goth.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or an elegant old lady.
There you go. Not so much pretty girl then. Yes.
Pretty girl. Okay, pretty female badass. Let's do it that.
Pretty people being badass.
There you are.
Yes, pretty people being badass.
My God.
More of that.
Frankenfurter from Rocky Horror Show. Yeah. There we
Rocky
are.
Horror Picture Show.
Is
he really badass though?
Well, you'd see that first introduction song, Transsexual from Transylvania. He seems like a badass because he's a leader, and leaders automatically get badass points.
Okay.
Not that he would beat your ass, but he was a leader. Well, he did chop up Meatloaf, so there you go.
Yeah. He just had the power to be a threat.
Yes. A very significant threat.
A sexy threat.
I would say
threat. No.
Threat.
In Without Moonlight, I guess Isis is a pretty girl badass.
I mean Iris.
Although she
our character, not the terrorist group.
She's Iris.
No, the character.
not
Isis. Sorry, Iris.
Yeah, exactly.
Isis.
Yes, you did.
Okay, Isis is another character that is not in Without Moonlight, but she's a character. Iris.
Oh, yeah.
As soon as you said it, alarm started going off in my head. What?
Hello and
come back.
She's don't let.
We have the other character named Isis, so.
She'll pierce your ears, but in an uncomfortable way. So be careful of that woman. I won't say any more. I'm not going to spoil it. All right. Well, thank you for listening to the QUACKCAST. This has been QUACKCAST number 546. Yes, it has. All right.
Yay.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Yay.
Bye-bye and thank you, guys.
Bye.
And girls.
Bye now.
Binary terms. I'm trying to rhyme for no reason. I do change my underwear. I am just being silly. I do change my underwear.